everyone, welcome back to the Marketing Nomad Show. I am the Marketing Nomad. I am the author of 0 to 4 Figures and Self-Loved. I'm also a digital entrepreneur and a business owner. A few of the roles that I do take on: I'm a YouTuber, podcaster, Etsy shop owner, Skillshare teacher, and that's basically who I am and what I do. Now, this is season 2 of the Marketing Nomad Show, where I reflect on my journey as an entrepreneur and a business owner. I share the highs, the lows, the in-betweens, and how this experience has shaped me personally and professionally. And today we are getting into handling financial stress as a solopreneur. Now, before I get into that, all right, kind of want to do a few minutes of just a talk between you and I. All right. I haven't been on this podcast for about 6 months now. I did start season 2 last year, but it's been 6 months since I released a podcast episode. Honestly, there was just so much happening on the back end that I really needed to shift my focus to other aspects before I could stabilize that and then come back over here. But I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to be coming back as a podcaster. I've always liked the podcast style of my videos because I feel like I get to share my experience. I get to talk about what I'm going through. And for me, I feel like I can connect better with the people that are out there who might be going through certain things that I'm going through as well as a solopreneur. And that makes me feel good about my journey. It makes me feel like I'm not alone, especially when I hear people commenting on maybe 1 or 2 of my podcast episodes that, hey, you know what, I'm going through the same thing as well. And so I've always liked the podcast style part of my content creation vertical of my business, I guess I would say. And another aspect of it is that this is my way of documenting my journey. And I love it, this is who I am, this is how I look at this point of my journey, and these are the thoughts that I'm having, this is what I'm going through. I love that, these are parts of my life that I'm lucky enough and I have the privilege to just document as I go. All right, so these podcast episodes, especially season 2, is very, very freestyle, as you may have already understood with the previous 2 episodes that have come out. This is a little bit more of a casual conversation that I'm having. It's more of me sharing my own experiences rather than me giving tips. If you are looking for the tip style videos, that would be season 1. You might have to go back and check those out. But these are going to be more of me just talking to you, just sharing my own thoughts, my own experiences, what has worked for me, what did not work for me, what was my thought process like. That's more of what I want to share with you, and I'm hoping that through these episodes, especially season 2 episodes, I'm hoping that it will give you a good starting point for yours. Maybe if you're struggling with the same thing, I hope that it will give you a good starting point to figure out what works for you. And if anything, I do hope that this lets you know that you are not alone on this journey. I too am facing, if not the same, but similar struggles. And I feel like that is my main intention with season 2. It's to show everyone and also myself that we're not alone in this. We're not the only ones going through, like, for example, in this episode, financial stress. Every single one of us, we're going through some form of it. And I hope that this episode makes all of us, me included, feel a little bit less alone as we're going through the struggles of being a solopreneur, as well as the highs of being a solopreneur. I will be talking about those as well. I will also be sharing more about my personal life as well, like maybe struggles that I am going through in my personal life because of my entrepreneurial journey, so on and so forth. I'm actually very excited to be sharing more of that. I have kind of stabilized another vertical of my business at this point in time, so I feel confident that I will be able to at least release 1 episode a week for my podcast. But yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful at this point, and I'm excited to get into today's episode because it's a pretty big one, handling financial stress as a solopreneur, because this one's been a big one for me in particular, especially when I started my entrepreneurial journey. I mean, I put every bit of savings I had into this journey, and I basically started from zero. Like, there was $0 in my bank account when I started. I mean, a couple of dollars, yes, here and there, but when I started this journey, I was pretty much broke. I mean, that is the title of my book as well, Zero to Four Figures, Lessons Learned by a Broke CEO. I was broke when I started out. And even through the 5 years of being an entrepreneur, wow, that sounds crazy. 5 years of being an entrepreneur, big number there. Yeah, but even in the 5 years of being an entrepreneur, I have had my own fair share of financial ups and downs, and it has been so dramatic in that respect. And something that I have understood in the 5 years is that financial stress seems to be a constant. And I think that there are varying degrees of it that happen throughout the journey of your entrepreneurial ups and downs, I guess I will say. But I feel that there is that financial stress or financial worry at the back of your mind, regardless of how things are going. Even if you're going at the high, it's kind of that stress. Okay, well, how do I sustain this? Or how do I maintain it? How can I do better? You know, there's always that worry at the back of the mind. But today in particular, we are going to be talking about handling financial stress when things are actually not going well, when you are going through a very low point in your business, all right? Because financial worry when you are going through a high point in your business, I would not call that stress per se, but I will say that there is a certain degree of worry. But how to handle that is very, very different. Your mindset around that is very, very different. However, your mindset around when things are actually, you know, in the trenches, you know, I think that it is different. I think that the financial stress that comes from it, oh my gosh, it is so different. And so today I feel like talking more about it, and we're going to go in particular with financial stress during the low points of your business. All right, so I've definitely had my own fair share of massive financial stress when things were not going well in my business. And it's been like multiple times. It's not just one time and I was done and dusted with it. No, of course not. It's been multiple times, especially in the last 5 years, that I have had to deal with financial stress because things were not going well in my business. And I even can tell you, like, there were certain months in my entrepreneurial journey where I was earning $0 per month, and it was crazy. It was really getting to me because I had my expenses building up, and on one hand I was not getting any clients. Of course, you know, we had the pandemic as well. I mean, that contributed, but at the same time I felt like my whole life was stuck at that point in time. And I think that's the thing about financial stress, you know, because I think that there is a lot tied to your finances, whether it's your self-worth, whether it is other aspects of your life, how you live your life, the lifestyle that you choose, and even it could be even other milestones of your life that could be tied to your finances. And for me, quite a bit was. And during those months, or you know, the times that I've hit a low point with my business in terms of finances, I felt so stuck. I felt that I couldn't move at all. I felt like that's it. My life was in limbo, whether it was my personal life or my professional life. I really felt that standstill energy. And more than the financial stress, I think that got to me a lot. And today, of course, we're going to be talking about how to reframe our mindset around that as well. This is going to be a long one, I think. I mean, I do have my points written down, but I feel like it's going to be a longer one. But the first thing that I kind of had to understand about this is I'm not alone in this. You know, there are other people also going through the same thing. This is not just affecting me. Of course, when I kind of went online and kind of looked at advice online, it was pretty disheartening for me because most of the advice that I was getting online was, okay, well, if you just save X amount of money per month, then you will be financially well off, or you will be financially stable in the next couple of months. And I was like, excuse me, sir or ma'am, this is $0 months we're talking about, or you know, the X amount of money that they said that I had to save. Well, that was how much I was earning that month. And so I have been through those months, and I feel that as a solopreneur, there will be, I mean, this is not just my journey. I'm very sure that you listening to it, you'll be like, yeah, yep, I've been through that as well. But I think that one thing that I had to understand was, first off, I'm not alone in this. And even if the advice on the internet was not applicable to my situation, I still had to understand that if other people are figuring it out, it means I also have the capacity in me to figure it out. They might have figured out for themselves that X amount of money per month, putting that into savings is going to help them. That's their story. That's what's worked for them. So if they could find a solution for what was working for them, then I could find a solution that could work for me. And for some of the solutions that I did come up with, and we're going to be talking about it in this podcast, for some of the solutions that did come up, it was more of tweaking what their solution was for their respective journey, their individual journey, and seeing how it could align or how I could tweak it to match my situation, my strengths, or could work around my weaknesses or what was the obstacles with respect to my journey. So that's the first thing that I want to tell with respect to this podcast is whatever advice that you do get, all right, whether it is from me or the people on the internet, whoever it is, they could be experts in their field, absolutely. And I really, really do respect the knowledge that they have. But I also, there's a part of me that understands that whatever knowledge that they could have gained or whatever advice they are giving, it is coming from their journey. It is coming from their perspective. It is coming from the resources that they had access to, the resources that they did not have access to, their own particular strengths, their own weaknesses. And so as much as I do respect the advice that is coming from people who are definitely more knowledgeable, more experienced than I am, I also understand that I have to tweak that to my situation and to what works for me. All right. So for example, talking about this point, all right, the person said, save X amount of money every single month and you will find yourself feeling much more stable about your finances. And while that was good advice that worked for him or her or them, X amount of money for me as someone who had a very, very volatile business at that point in time with no consistent income. Remember, there were some months that were doing so well and there were other months that was like absolute zero. That was not applicable to me per se because of how volatile my income was or continues to be. At least now it's a little bit more stable, but at that point in time it was very, very volatile. And so for me, instead of taking X amount of money, I decided to make it a percentage. All right, percentage of what I was earning that month. So even to this day, I continue this, by the way. Whatever I put for savings or I put for investment or my salary or what else is there? Yeah, things that I need for my equipment. Everything is a percentage of what I am earning that month, and that goes into the savings bracket, but it is distributed in what I need it for. And during those months, sometimes the savings that I would put for myself was just $10 or sometimes even $5. But there was a time, yes, I will tell you this, there was a time when it was like $2.57. That was my savings as a percentage of the income or the income that my business was making, or the revenue, I guess, my business was making. My income was separate. All right, so even that, I decided every single cent counts, all right? But I am going to take it as a percentage. Even if it is $2.57, I am going to put that into my account. I am going to feel proud that I was able to save that much from the revenue that I was earning, all right? And I think that shift in my mindset, first off, taking advice from someone else and tweaking it to something that works for me, that was one thing. But second, understanding that every single cent counts. I cannot feel bad for, that person's earning 15, 20 times and they're saving 10 times more than me. And this is like $2.50. But I think that there was a big shift that needed to happen on my mindset as well, on my end, where I was like, I am grateful that I get to save $2.57. I am grateful. I am so grateful for that amount of money. It doesn't matter what the amount is I am able to save, and that by itself, like the systems that I have created in order to allow me to save, even if it is $2, wow, sorry, struggle with that, $2.57, that is something that I am going to be proud of. That is something that I am going to consider it as a win. And so it was through these very, very tiny steps, I gotta tell you, that I slowly started handling my financial stress, because only if there is a change in your financial situation will that stress significantly reduce. But while you are going through that stress, there are ways for you to handle it. There are ways to minimize the damage that it is doing to your mental and emotional health. There are ways to reduce the impact that it is having on your behavior as well, your actions as well. And this was one way. And I absolutely feel that every single one of us, it's important that we first off don't compare, saying, oh, this person's saving X amount per month, but I'm not even able to save maybe 1/10 of that. And that's okay. That's okay. This is your savings at this point in time. Tomorrow it could be different. And I feel like understanding that for me was very, very important. Another thing, and I'm just looking down at my notes just to make sure that I've covered what I wish to say as well, because I feel like there's a lot. Another thing that helped me was, all right, well, let's take the example of the $2.57, okay? So at that point in time, it was $2.57. That was one particular month I remember so clearly. What can I buy with this? Even just thinking of a list of items that I can buy with that small amount of money, or with that amount of money that I am saving, it really, really helped me, whether that was, a 50-cent chocolate, whatever it is, I can buy that with this amount of savings, and that was important for me to shift my mindset, because now, whether it is $2.57 or $20.57 or $200.57, you're looking at it as money that you can actually spend, rather than worrying about the quantity of it, So I guess in my perspective, I was shifting my quantity of savings into the quality of my savings. Like, what can I buy with this $2.57? And that in my mind was kind of raising the value of that $2.57, So that was important for me in terms of my mindset shift as well, and celebrating that. That was very, very important for me as well. And that was something that I had to force myself to do, to be very honest with you, because I think that when you are seeing other people earning so much more or saving so much more, I think that it can make you feel like, okay, well, this is nowhere compared to that. Should I even be celebrating? Is it deserving of a celebration? Or no, should I not? I really feel that I went through that thought process, and I had to put my foot down and say, no, you know what? You're doing this, all right? You have created something from scratch. And yes, there are going to be months when it is going to be so low. There are also going to be months that it's going to be high. But at the same time, just because you're waiting for the high months doesn't mean you don't get to celebrate how you are managing to push through the low months as well. And for me, that is a mindset that I still continue even to this day. It doesn't matter how other people are doing. I think that comparison is really the thief of joy, and that's not something that I said. It is out there, but I truly believe it, because it is only when I stopped comparing myself to other people or to these big experts in the field. I love their journey. I'm so happy for them, but at the same time, I also feel that there needed to be a boundary that I set for myself, that is their journey, and I'm happy for them. I'm really grateful that I get to hear their story, but at the same time, I have to put that wall and protect myself and understand that I can't compare my journey to them. I have to look at my journey differently, and that was a good starting point for me, I will say, to start understanding that, okay, you know what, even if I'm saving $10, it's a matter of celebration. I am going to take it as a win, whether it's $2.57 or, much more, as things change, because things really shift in this business, right? So I think that was also a very, very good point for me to understand myself, and I started celebrating, the victories that I had, whether it was creating systems and processes to help me save, or it was actually saving money. That was definitely something that helped me. And one thing that, I'm getting into my next point is, there's something about finances that does control you. And we did touch upon this when I started this podcast episode, right? There is something about it that does control you. But I think minimizing it takes a lot of intentional effort. And I think we did get a bit into like your self-worth issues, right? I feel like it does tie a lot into it. I had friends who were earning so much more than me, and I had other solopreneurs also who were earning a lot more than me, even though at one particular time of my low phase of my business, I guess I would say, there were other solopreneurs who were in the same boat as I am, just because of what was happening around the world. And it was just a tough market at that point in time. And at that point, I think that my self-worth was a little bit more protected, because I felt like, okay, well, other people are also going through this. But I think it was in those other moments where other people were doing better than me, but I was not able to kind of pick up things in my business, or things were just very volatile at that point in time. That was when I felt, yes, okay, this is affecting the way that I think about myself. This is affecting my self-worth. And for some reason, I kind of tied it to my self-worth. And that has been something that I have been actively working on, at least in the last 2 years. I will not say that I am completely out of it. I think I still do. A part of me does. But I think that it is a much healthier relationship compared to how it was 2 years ago. At least today, I find myself, like, if I find that I am kind of tying my self-worth to my finances, I am able to step in and say, no, we're not supposed to think that way. Reframe. Get out of that. All right. I'm able to tell myself that, whereas 2 years ago I was not able to. So I feel like there's a healthier relationship at this point in time. But my reflex, my reflex is definitely a little bit tied to my self-worth, as in my finances. And I think that the first step that I took towards that was to observe my thought process, observe how it was changing my actions in the way that I was speaking to other people, in the way that I was speaking to my clients, in the way that I was speaking to myself as well, right? And I think that first observing and understanding was important for me before I could shift my behavior, or before I could analyze and kind of say, okay, you know what, that was not aligned. I think that there was something wrong with the way that I spoke to myself, or the way that I was speaking to someone else, kind of putting myself down, or kind of putting them on a pedestal as well. That also kind of tends to happen as well, and it's happened with me as well. So for me, it was observing and understanding that what is true, what is not true. How do I reframe what is not true? How can I find evidence that it is not true? How can I find evidence that my self-worth is not tied to my finances? And I feel like just asking myself these questions really helped me reframe my mindset. It still continues to as well. Every time I feel like, okay, well, I don't feel worthy of perhaps saying something to my client that is me setting my boundaries, because, well, things are not going great on the business end of my business, and I really need this client, or I really need this project. Yeah, reframing that was very important for me. Like, no, my self-respect, my self-worth does not depend on what in revenue I'm generating in my business. If this feels like the client is crossing my boundaries, I have to put my foot down. I have to establish boundaries. And so I think that really helped me in terms of, I don't know, just analyzing my own behavior and making sure that I was getting out of my own way, and I was not tying my self-worth to my finances. All right. So that was one thing. So far, we've kind of talked about the mindset aspect of it, but I also do want to talk about the anxiety aspect of it, where there is substantial anxiety that comes from your financial stress as well. And for me, it was crazy. I mean, I couldn't even look at my bank balance. Like, it was that intense for me. It would cause like this panic attack within me every time I would even think about looking at my bank balance, or every time I would think about what income or what revenue I was generating for that point in time. And yeah, sorry, I'm just like reflecting back about that time, because it was pretty intense for me. It was really, really intense. And at that point in time, I didn't know other people who might have been going through this, because I also feel that you, especially when you're going through it, you don't really want to talk about it to anybody else. You don't really want to share it, because first off, you feel like, okay, well, no one's ever going to resonate. Everyone seems to be doing so well. So at that point in time, I didn't really talk. It was only much later that I started talking about it, and I started understanding that, oh, everybody's going through this. I mean, at least to some degree of it, there are other people, my friends who are, solopreneurs as well. They too are going through it in some degree. But at this point in time, when I was having like a lot of anxiety about my financial situation, I didn't know that there were other people in the same situation. And so one thing that really, really helped me at that point in time was understanding that this was not a failure of my business. It was just a problem that I needed to solve. It was not about, success or failure. It was a problem, and a problem means there are going to be solutions. And perhaps I didn't understand what the solution was at that point in time, but that didn't mean that I wasn't going to figure it out, or that didn't mean that I could get the resources to help me find solutions to the problem that I needed to solve. And I feel like this was a very, very big mindset shift that helped me calm down, especially when I was getting those panic attacks. And it was like, I definitely had anxiety. Like, it was something that was slowly burning at the back of my mind, and it was just like slowly bubbling, and I could feel it for extended periods of time. And every time I would think about like my bank balance, or every time I would think about, okay, like what am I earning and what am I saving, or all of those things, it was just, I could feel the panic attack just coming through, and it was really difficult. It was really, really difficult at that point in time. Like I said, entrepreneurship, it really, really tests you. It tests you in ways you cannot even imagine. And while I am so, so grateful for this journey and the lows that have built me as a person, not just in my professional life, but even in my personal life, I do have to say that it has been intense. And I feel like this is the typical entrepreneurship journey, especially when you're going solo. I feel that this is a typical, where it does have intense periods of where it pushes you to really, really dig into your mindset, what's not working for you, and also, of course, to discover your true potential. Hold on, we're hitting 30 minutes, but I have to kind of reset the camera. Just give me a second. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back, okay? All right, we're back. So where was I? Yes, talking about, this was not a failure, but this was a problem that I needed to solve. And that mindset shift, really helped me. Another thing that I kind of started doing was, especially to manage my anxiety. And of course, if you need professional help, please seek it, all right? But this is what worked for me in particular. I started focusing on what I could control, because I felt that the reason why I was feeling so anxious, or the reason why I was kind of panicking so much, is because everything felt like I couldn't control. Everything felt like it was out of my control, or that I couldn't do anything to stop it or to manage it. But that was not true, right? That was not true, because there were certain aspects of my business that I could control. There were certain aspects about my financial situation that I could control. It was just other aspects that seemed much, much bigger in my perspective that I could not control. And so understanding this also was a pretty big mindset shift that I needed to implement for myself. And so I started focusing on what I could control. And this is something that I actually learned through another aspect of my life, like when my visa didn't work out and I had to completely uproot my life and everything was shifting around me. I felt that loss of control, and this is something that I learned at that point in time. And I at first didn't think to apply that strategy towards my financial situation, but loss of control is loss of control, and that's something that I understood, and that's how I used that particular strategy for this as well. So in that situation, the one where my entire life was uprooted, I focused on what I could control the next minute, the next hour, the next day. And this is something that I also talk about in my book, 0 to 4 Figures, as well. And so I applied that strategy towards my financial situation as well. I started looking at what I could control, what was in my control, and what was it that I could manage, rather than focusing so much on what I could not control. The moment I started focusing on what I could control, what I couldn't control started to seem like the size that it was, not how it was blown up in my mind. And that helped me manage what I could not control, at least in terms of my mindset, because physically I could not manage it. Let's be honest, physically I could not manage it at that point in time. But in terms of my mindset, in terms of my perception of it, yes, it definitely did. It definitely helped me a lot. All right, so focus on what you can control, and I'll give you an example. For example, if clients are not coming in, all right, you're not getting clients, you're not able to book clients. What I was doing was I was focusing on, oh, clients are not coming, they're not, no. That was what I was focusing on. Whereas what I should have been focusing on, and what I did end up focusing on much later after I kind of applied the same strategy, was why? Why isn't it working out? Why aren't they coming in? What is it in my systems and processes that I can manage? All right, well, I do have a lead magnet. Am I putting in emails that can help them convert? All right, let's take a look at those emails. Let's take a look and see what I can shift in those emails. Maybe they're not lucrative enough. Maybe they're not explaining my services to the detail that my client needs. How do I shift that? How do I make changes to that? That is in my control. Whether the client comes in or not, to an extent, that is not in my control, but there are certain aspects of that I can control, that is within my control. There are certain systems and processes that I can put in to control that as well. So I started focusing on what I could control. I started tweaking. I completely went on the back end and started tweaking, did everything possible. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, and that's okay too. I feel like there is so much pressure we put on ourselves that, okay, everything that I tweak, everything that I try to do differently has to work. No, sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. At least you are focusing on that. At least you are putting in the attention, the energy to see what works. And if it doesn't work, that's one thing that you've eliminated. You can get on to the next one. Try something else. Keep trying different things until something works out, because sometimes entrepreneurship is trial and error, all right? Sometimes it is. Actually, most of the times it is trial and error, because I think that there are so many factors that even if someone were to just give you a strategy right off the bat, there are too many variables in the picture, all right? That is what I believe, at least. And yeah, a big part of entrepreneurship is also kind of moving along as things shift around you as well. So sometimes, or most of the times, it's very, very unpredictable. All right. Okay. That's not the point of this podcast episode today. So I'm going to shift from that. But for me, it was more of, okay, what are small, stable steps that I can take to control, or in the things that I can control, what are small, actionable steps that I can take to shift it, to make it more in my control, or for it to tweak the results that I can't control at this moment in time, at least increase the probability of that. So that is something that I really had to take a lot of time to think about and strategize as well. So up until now, we've kind of talked about the mindset aspect of it, as well as, I guess, certain thinking aspects of it. But now we're kind of getting into some of the strategies that actually worked for me. First off, I think we talked about, saving a certain percentage every single month, even if it is $2.57, even if it is that, making that intentional effort, setting up systems and processes, seeing how a percentage-based budgeting system is going to work out for you, figuring out the percentage that works specifically for your situation, your needs, your wants, your desires, the lifestyle that you want for yourself. The expenses that you have, that is also very, very important, and that is something that we've already touched upon, but that also was kind of touched upon because I said I tweaked someone else's advice to match mine. But that is one strategy that works for you. no amount of money is less. All right. I think that is something that you have to shift. And that is something that I had to shift as well, because I don't know if I should say this out loud, but sometimes you look at a certain amount of money and you're like, okay, but it's only that much. But that much, when you start changing your perspective about it, you start saying, but it is something, Shifting that perspective helps you value every single cent. And that is important, because that comes to my next strategy. And that is to evaluate what are you spending money on. And the more I feel you start valuing, even if it is $1, even if it is $2, that's how you start saving up on expenses. You start removing expenses that maybe would have conflated your ego, or it would have been something that you had the luxury of spending your money when things were high, but not when things are low. Yeah, it helps you evaluate that with a very, very objective perspective. And it allows you to be or to make difficult decisions with ease, because it cuts off that emotional tie you have to that particular expense, because you're saying, okay, even $1 matters to me. $1 that I am able to save, it still counts. It still counts for me. And so for me, it was also shifting that perspective as well. And you might say, well, for people out there, every single dollar counts. But for me, at that point in time, I have to admit that I did take it a little bit for granted. I mean, knock on wood, my upbringing was from a more privileged background, and my parents, they're very, very hardworking, and they made sure that, I never, or my sister and I never felt that there was money lacking for the necessary items in our education or even in our personal life as well. So for me to come out of that security, that level of security, I have to tell you that I admit I did take money for granted a little bit. It wasn't until I was pushed into the entrepreneurial journey that I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how my parents did it, but now I have to figure it out for myself. And the value of money significantly increased in my mind, especially during the low points of my journey. And that is something, one lesson that I will carry with me for the rest of my life, whether it is my entrepreneurial journey or other aspects of it as well. And so coming back to the part where I said, okay, it helps you remove that emotional tie, because there were certain expenses that I was keeping as part of my business, expenses that were actually tied to my ego, or it was a luxury expense that I could not afford at that point in time. And I really needed to be honest with myself, and this helped. This perception of money really, really helped me ruthlessly cut off the expenses that I could not afford. And I feel like even admitting to myself that this is something that I can afford, could not afford, was I definitely had an ego block at that point in time. I definitely had, because I feel like, just saying I can't afford it was such, oh my gosh, I felt like I was being personally attacked at that point in time. But I think that there are certain moments that the universe kind of puts in front of you to break that ego. And I know that this is going a little bit on the spiritual route, but I am a very spiritual person as well. So for me, I think that was the transformation that I was meant to make at that point in time as well. And so I needed to go through that to break my ego and to admit it to myself that this is something that I can afford, cannot afford. And even to this day, I am very clear in my mind. I can afford that. I cannot afford that. And regardless of my financial situation, I think that having that clarity and being honest with yourself, I think it's a very, very important lesson. And I attribute a big part of my mindset today to that as well. Just understanding what is in my capacity, financial capacity, and what is not, has been an absolute game changer as well. All right. Another financial strategy that I furiously started implementing was diversifying my income streams to a complete different level. I mean, beyond 5 is something that I just went crazy. I mean, people look at me and they're like, you do so many things, but I have to tell you, it comes from a place where I was at a low point and I had to, and now I'm able to consistently keep up with it, but diversifying my income streams, because I realized that I couldn't depend on one income stream. It was just too much pressure on me. It was adding a lot to my financial stress, especially during the months where I wasn't getting any clients. And so that's when I started diversifying my income stream. I started with my podcast, with my YouTube, with my Etsy. Now, granted that YouTube and podcast did not give me the financial return right off the bat, but there have been brand partnerships that have given me a return on investment. All right, so I do want to put that out there. And Etsy, I started off on Etsy, started selling digital products on Etsy. Then I became a Skillshare teacher. I started putting out courses online as well. There are certain courses that are there on my website that still do sell. It's not something that I'm actively selling, but it's there on my website. People find it through SEO and it's doing a great job. It's there, it adds to my income. Then I started another vertical of my business. I started tapping into my other strengths as well, not just the marketing aspect of it. And then I built that. That's actually what I've been up to for a year. Not yet ready to talk about it because it's still stabilizing, but that did come out of, another moment or another phase of financial struggle that I was going through with my business as well. So I think that diversifying income streams and just recognizing that you have to find income streams that have minimal investment upfront, but that can give you at least a little bit of turnaround to ease your other financial income, just income. Just ease the pressure off of it just a little bit. And so for me, I furiously worked on it. I think you can know. I mean, with my book as well. Yes, even the book was diversifying my income stream, right? So if you take a look at the things that I do, you just Google my name or Google The Marketing Nomad, you will see a list of things that I do and I continuously do, even if I have to take a break from it every now and then, which I did with the podcast as well, right? So with YouTube as well, even if I do have to take a break from it every now and then, it's still something that's running. There are other episodes. There are, I think, about 200 episodes on my podcast and 400 videos that are still running, So even that passive revenue stream, it's helped me. And of course, I do want to say that even if it is passive income stream, there is active work involved in it, all right? Just because it says passive does not mean you don't have to continuously keep working on it. It's just that it allows you that freedom to take a step from it, take a step back every now and then. All right, that's something that I do want to say. So that is something that I took a look at, and that could be something that you might want to take a look at. I think that sometimes we feel, okay, this is one way to go about it. This is what my strengths are, but you could have other strengths as well, So just expanding your thought process and taking a look at who you are as a person. What other aspects can you what other strengths of yours can you maximize? Can you create into a revenue stream? Because in this day and age, I have to tell you, there is nothing that you can't monetize. There is absolutely nothing that you can't monetize. Your passion, your strengths, there is absolutely nothing, all right? In this day and age in particular, and I think that we are very, very lucky in that sense at this point in time. So take a look. Just see, you never know, you might actually create a completely different revenue stream that no one has ever done before because of your strengths, or because that is how you uniquely look at your strengths and that's how you've decided to leverage it. All right, so that is something. Then we talked a little bit about reducing expenses, but there's something that I've written over here that's very, very important: without sacrificing growth. So yes, there's a little bit of your ego that is tied with certain expenses, so making sure that you're removing it, but also making sure that the expenses that you're removing, it is not hindering your growth. So doing a very healthy audit of your business is also very, very important. Sometimes it's not about increasing your income. It could actually be just removing expenses that you no longer need. So having that frequent audit is also important. This is something that I do every single month. Every single month when, I'm charged with certain things, like at the end of the month, I'm consolidating it, right? I always, always, always take a look at my expenses. And this is actually something that I learned from the full-time job that I was at. Shout out to Empower Solar. This is something that their accounting team did, and us as a marketing team, we would always consolidate our expenses, and we would always keep watching out for, okay, was this needed? Was this not needed? There was always that thought process that was going on. So this was a habit that I picked up from there, it works. It really, really works, because sometimes it's not about the income increasing. It's about you maybe perhaps spending that money on something that is no longer important to your business, or something that is actually contributing more to your ego, contributing to a certain lifestyle that you can't afford at this point in time, that you really need to remove, that you can bring back in, at a later date. All right. So that is something. And then the other thing that I do want to briefly touch upon, because I feel like this probably involves a whole other episode, but debt. I definitely was in debt for a couple of months of my business, and it was brutal. I mean, things just rack up against you without you knowing, and it was difficult. It's probably something that I'm still processing. It's something that more so mentally processing and emotionally kind of going through the repercussions of being in debt and coming out of it, because it does shift your mindset completely about it, and it causes, like, there are certain fears that I'm still working through. So this will probably be a whole podcast episode on its own at some point when I'm ready to talk about it, because there are like things that I'm still figuring out on my own, like the after effects of coming out of debt, and like even just processing what I went through when I was in debt as well. So, but yeah, there's one thing that I do want to say, because we're talking about financial stress, and oftentimes it does come with debt. And something that I want to say is make sure that you have a realistic plan. All right. There are so many videos out there about paying off your debt, like a repayment plan. But I want to say that what works for your situation specifically may be different from the advice that is out there. Don't blindly follow it. And the reason why I'm like saying it with so much of like passion is because I made that mistake. All right. And of course, I'll talk about it in another podcast episode, but I definitely made that mistake. And one thing that I've figured out a little bit too late actually is your repayment plan has to work specifically for your situation and the amount of debt, your resources, your strengths, your weaknesses, your expenses as well. All right. You can use their advice as a starting point for your repayment plan, but don't take it as a template for yours. I think that is how things can slip, because what works for them might not work for you. And this is something that even Morgan Housel, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, but he says this in Psychology of Money. The advice that comes from other people, it comes from their experience, their understanding of money, and their, what resources they have, they did not have, their thought processes at that point in time, the conditions that they were exposed to that led to their thought process of how they want to deal with their situation, which may or may not even be related to yours at all. And so understanding that is absolutely important, especially when you are going through a very, very low point in your business and when you're struggling financially. All right. So because taking on someone's advice that is misaligned with what is going on in your financial situation might actually make you slip faster or deeper into it. Deeper, faster, both, because that's happened with me as well. And it took me reframing my mindset and saying, no, I respect their journey. I'm going to use it as a starting point for mine, but I am going to figure this out on my own. I'm going to see what works for me in particular. That has been a big game changer for me in terms of handling the financial stress during the low points of my business. All right. So the last thing that I do want to touch upon is, even with respect to your financial goals, and this is kind of going off about taking advice from other people. They might have goals that are big or that are bigger than what you can afford at this point in time. And that's okay. Set smaller goals for yourself, or I guess I would say set goals that align with what you are going through. Set goals that are realistic for your situation in particular. There is no such thing as a big goal or a small goal or a significant goal or an insignificant goal. A goal is a goal. The minute you understand that and you look at your situation specifically, I think that it removes a lot of that hindrance to make your own goals for your situation. So just think of it as, this is my goal. It is big in accordance or in perception of what I'm going through, and that's okay, you know? I don't have to follow someone else's goal. I don't have to follow what they feel is a realistic goal for me. No, I get to decide. I am the solopreneur here, right? I mean, that is why I took on this journey also, right? I'm actually just saying my own thought processes at that point in time. That is why you took on this journey, so that you have that independent thought process. You have the capacity within you to take those decisions for yourself, right? So make use of that. Take advantage of why you even started on this journey. And so for me, it has been that as well. And the last thing that I do want to touch upon is, and this is something that I continue even to this day, make sure that there is at least one daily action that you are taking towards improving your financial situation. At least one every single day. That really, really helps to calm you down. I, just opposite me where I'm sitting right now, there is a big board, all right? There's a whiteboard. I have marked it with 12 months of the calendar. And every day that I do take action towards improving my financial situation, it has a direct impact on my financial situation. Like it is, like, for example, I create a course and I put it at a certain price. That is me working towards something that is going to give me an immediate financial return, right? Yes, it might take time for someone to find it, but it is going to give me that return on investment. I am directly working on something that is generating income for me. I mark a cross on that wall, that whiteboard over there. And just looking at it today, like there are maybe 2 days in a month. I'm looking at January right now. There are 2 days in January where I did not. And that was because I was sick or something was happening. But the rest of January, I did. There is a cross. I look at it. I feel good. I feel like, okay, you know what? Even if things are not okay or I'm not where I am at with respect to my financial situation, I'm doing something, working towards it. I am working on income generating tasks. All right. So tracking that, first off, doing one task, a single task at least a single task every single day towards towards generating income. It is going to change. It is going to change the way that you show up, the way that you feel about your financial situation, and track it. Track. Because the more you can track it, the more you can just look at it. For me, it's a place where I just, every time I'm feeling low, I just have to look up and it's there for me to see, and track it in a place, like put it on somewhere where you're gonna keep seeing it. That by itself calms you down. It calms me down so much. I'm like, I'm putting in effort. It's not like I'm not. And this is towards an income generating task. All right, that is important. Income generating task. All right. So one daily task, one daily action that is an income generating task, it is going to change the way that you handle your financial stress as well. It changes your perception of what is happening, which helps you manage your financial stress. All right. So another thing that I've written over here is it just leads to more confidence and peace. This is something that I can vouch for. This is something that I continue doing. I'm probably going to do it for the rest of my life, for the rest of my professional life at least, because it's important. It's important for you to keep reminding yourself that you are doing something towards long-term stability of your finances. You're doing something every single day. And that is a reminder. That is also an assurance for me. All right. So that's how I'm able to kind of, every time I feel that panic coming in, look, and it's there. It's there. All right. So of course, the tracking will cause more panic if you're actually not doing the task. So make sure that you are actually also doing. Try to incorporate. It doesn't have to take too long. For me, the task that I have particularly put takes 1 hour of my time every single day. All right, and I dedicate that time, 1 hour, I dedicate it to that. All right, the income generating task, whatever that could be creating a course, could be a digital product that you want to release, could be content creation, maybe a brand partnership that you're working on. For me, it is 1 hour of my day, minimum at least, that I have to dedicate the time. For you, it could be 30 minutes, 10 minutes, start with that. All right, for me, I actually started with 30 minutes. That's how 30 minutes was in my mind. But today it's 1 hour. I'm able to dedicate that. And start small. It doesn't have to be a big task. Start small, 10 minutes a day, then push it to 20, push it to 30. Today I'm at 1 hour. It is about 1 hour, a little bit less than that, 55 minutes. Exactly, like I know how much it actually takes. But overall, 1 hour I dedicate, and I'm able to track that as well. So dedicating that time is important, yes, but also tracking it is equally important, all right? Every single thing that you do, all right, whether it is showing up for your business with this 10 minutes of income generating task or 30 minutes of this income generating task, it compounds. It really, really does compound. And I used to get so frustrated when people would say this because it wasn't happening at that point in time. But I don't think that I gave it enough time for me to see the results. And that is also something that one should keep in mind, that the compounding happens beyond a certain threshold, but until then you have to put in that bit of effort every single day and trust that the results are going to come, trust that you will see the results. And I think that perception will always stay. Like today I'm working towards something bigger. Tomorrow I would have probably achieved what I wanted, but I'll be working towards something bigger. So if we keep this perception in our mind that, okay, what I'm doing today will compound at some point in time, I feel that also gives us the confidence that also motivates us to show up for that task as well every single day. Like I said, there are 2 days specifically in January, and then in February, I think 2 days, yes. Hold on, wait. No, February 1 day. Look at that. Like, can you see the smile on my face just even talking about it? January, 2 days, February, 1 day, and March so far, 1 day I missed because I think I was just too overwhelmed that day and I was not able to get to it. But that tracking helps, it just puts me at so much ease seeing so many crosses on my calendar over there. It doesn't have to be complicated, just a 12-month calendar, just cross, and that by itself will make you feel a lot better because it's not up in the air anymore. It's kind of you telling yourself that I am working towards something. I am working towards an income generating task. It's gonna shift. I am working towards that. All right. Whew, this was a very, very long episode, but I really hope that you at least feel like you are not alone in this with, how much I've shared in this. I mean, that has been my intention. I also really hope that you can use it as a starting point to see what works for you to help you handle your own financial stress. And hold on, we're almost hitting 30 minutes. I gotta reset the camera. Yes. So I really hope that it provides a good starting point for you as well. And, just know that the situation you're in, only you understand the depth of what you're going through, all right? And sometimes that can make you feel a little bit lonely, but at the same time, if you can ask for help, if you can seek help or just support from trusted people, I think that also makes all the difference in the world. I remember that at one point in time, I was too close to what I was going through. I was not able to just kind of, even in the expenses that I was kind of trying to eliminate, I wasn't able to see clearly because I think I was just so emotionally invested and I was just so emotionally charged as well, and that the stress really gets to you. So I kind of asked my sister, and she sat with me. She's like, okay, you know what? Do you really need this expense? Even just having her sit beside me and asking that one simple question, like, do you really need this expense? It just calmed me down so much. And it was just her way of supporting me, even though she couldn't actually help me through that time. But even just having someone to bounce my ideas off, or someone who is kind of asking me if my thought process was correct or not, or just helping me reflect, that by itself, I'm so grateful for that as well. In that respect, even my parents, they've kind of stepped in at certain points, just to help me clear my mind or to just help me relieve that emotional burden I was carrying. I mean, I guess in a way, I'm very lucky that both my parents are business owners and they're entrepreneurs, so they kind of do understand the struggle that I go through. But that being said, I would say 90% of my journey, I felt like no one else could understand other than a solopreneur, because my parents, they run very successful businesses, but it's at a different level. But being a solopreneur, it's a different kind of struggle. It's a different kind of loneliness that you feel about not being understood. And I've sensed this in other solopreneurs as well. And I've also sensed that only a solopreneur can understand what another solopreneur is going through. It might not be similar, like it might not be the same situations, but that undercurrent energy, yeah, it's different. It's different. And so yeah, I really hope that by sharing this, you too feel a little bit lighter about your journey. And I hope that the way that I have managed to come out of my low points provides a good starting point for yours. The way that I managed to handle my financial stress during my low points provides a good starting point. And I'm not saying that I will not face financial stress or low points in the future. This journey is so volatile, and that could come up with different lessons that I'm meant to learn, or different ways that I'm meant to learn. But this is where I am at today. This is the lessons that I've learned, and this is the action that I've taken to get me to this point today. Tomorrow I could be different, but today this is where I'm at. All right, and take the time to celebrate. Take the time to celebrate your small wins, especially when it comes to finances. I feel like we have a certain perception. That's also why I actually wrote my book, 0 to 4 Figures, because people, the first question they ask, why not 6? Why not 6 figures? And there's a reason for that. Celebrate your small wins. Celebrate your perception of a small win, because to start something from scratch and to keep it going consistently, to keep it going despite the lows, despite the extreme lows, if I may add, to sustain it during the extreme highs as well, is an accomplishment. It deserves to be celebrated. It deserves to be recognized first and foremost by you. All right? So that is where I end this conversation today and this podcast episode. I really hope that it helps you in some way. And yeah, if you have any thoughts, you can definitely send your thoughts in an email to hello@themarketingnomad.co. I'd be happy to read it, to maybe have a chat with you about just what we're going through as well. So thank you so much. And if this podcast episode resonated, please do give me a thumbs up. If you're watching this on YouTube, just know that if you prefer the video version of it, it is available on YouTube. Yes, definitely do give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. This YouTube channel of mine is a mixed bag. I mean, there are different things that I do post, but yes, I will be continuing with these podcast episodes on my YouTube channel as well. Alrighty. I'll catch you in my next one, all right? Bye-bye.